Hi, this is Charles Kelly. Well, over the last few weeks, unless you've been on another planet, you would have heard that a new vaccine to vaccinate all of us against COVID-19 is being rolled out just months after we've only just started to hear about coronavirus and COVID-19. In fact, the first we heard about it was probably January, February this year. And whilst it normally takes up to 10 years to develop and get a vaccine out onto the market and get it approved by all the government bodies in the UK, America, and the European Union, this vaccine seems to have just been rolled out quicker than anything I've ever seen. Now, whether or not you agree with the speed of this, the haste of this, what I want to look at today is the vaccine, the drug companies that will benefit from this vaccine, and look at whether you should be following Warren Buffett and investing in some of the big pharma companies. Now, before you go running out and buying shares in Pfizer, think about this for the moment, that any gain in the share price would have already been factored in when Pfizer were developing this drug and were close to getting it approved. It was first approved in the UK. So, to think that as a small investor, you can sort of jump on the bandwagon a few weeks afterwards and buy the shares and hope that they're going to double in value is a little bit naive, because the big investors, the markets have already bought into these stocks and have already factored into the price the fact that these companies have got a winning product on their hand. And if you look at the share price of Pfizer since March of this year, it's not quite doubled, but it's near enough doubled in price since March of this year. And even since November the 20th, it went up from, say, 4th of November here, early November. Well, let's look at end of October. It was $34. It's now $41. So it's jumped up nearly a third just in the last month or so. So, you're probably a bit late to jump on the bandwagon now. I mentioned Warren Buffett because Warren Buffett apparently bought into 5 big pharmaceutical companies in the summer. So he was ahead of the curve. He was ahead of the game, as he usually is, and he will obviously add a few billion to his wealth. So he got in, and many of the smart fund managers and hedge funds would have got into this market. But and secondly, the truth is, if you don't know how to research companies and you don't know how to really dig into whether a company is worth buying at a given price, then you're probably better off in a managed fund or an index fund which just tracks the value of companies. You can find all sorts of index funds that track US stocks, that track certain sectors, that track UK or European stocks or Asian stocks, and they are considered to be a good way for the the non-sophisticated investor, or the investor that hasn't got the time and doesn't want to take the effort to individually look at shares, because it is notoriously difficult to search those out. And even Warren Buffett says that unless you're prepared to educate yourself on the stock market and individual shares, that you're probably better off in an index fund. And index funds are also cheaper than traditional managed funds because they're not actively managed by highly paid investment analysts. They're largely run by computer programs that track the price of shares up and down as well. It can go down as well. Obviously, if the market does go down, it will go down. Now, as I said, the vaccine's out now. So which companies are actually out there developing this vaccine? Well, we've heard of Moderna, Sinovac, SmithKline, Glaxo, GSK, big UK company, Pfizer, as we know, and Oxford University are working in conjunction with AstraZeneca, and you've got Novavax, CureVac, Johnson and Johnson, the people who make your baby oil and cream, and there's a Russian one which is Sputnik. But are these companies going to make huge profits out of these? Because a lot of them, it seems, will be not making huge profits from these vaccines, and they're charging not much more than it costs to produce this vaccine. So AstraZeneca, in fact, looks like they're charging will be the cheapest per dose. It looks like it'd be about $4 or £3. Moderna, a small technology firm which has been working on the technology behind the groundbreaking RNA vaccine, is pricing theirs much higher at $37 a dose. So they aim to make big profits for those firms, but for those shareholders. But not every firm is going to make a huge killing out of this. And obviously, there's a lot of different vaccines coming out at once. And also with drugs companies, you could, if something goes wrong, that can really send the whole thing spiraling downwards. If the people taking this vaccine do develop any side effects or anything serious, then it can suddenly change overnight. So what I'm saying is, I wouldn't rush out and buy these shares unless you really know what you're doing and you're confident that the share price, you're buying in at the right price. Like anything else, just because property is going up in value, I wouldn't say go out and buy properties, because you've got to know what you're doing. But a lot these COVID vaccines, the funding for this has mainly come from the government. In fact, AstraZeneca, Oxford and AstraZeneca have had 1.65 billion of government funding. Novavax have had nearly 2 billion, or just over 1 billion of government funding. Johnson & Johnson, a huge company, 600 million of government funding. Others have benefited from charities and not-for-profit organisations such as the Bill Gates Foundation to help pump money into this. So very, very little of it has come from private money. So I think they'll be expected to sell the drugs at a reasonable kind of price. So just be careful. I wouldn't sort of jump on the bandwagon here. Just be careful which company you go into, if you do go into any of these companies. I think AstraZeneca there looks like they could be providing a high number of doses, but and they said they will only cover their costs. So just be careful there. Like anything else, you've got to be careful not to sort of think, well, I might miss the boat, I'll jump on the bandwagon by buying these shares. And if you're not sure which shares you should be buying, then perhaps you should be then looking at managed funds or as I said, index funds, and not individually just buying shares as a sort of a gamble. Investing in shares is an investment. It's not the stock market is not a glorified horse race where you just pick a winner and hope for the best. You've really got to know what you're doing, because you can lose a lot of money if you're not very careful. And as always, you should take your own advice. And so finally today, at the time we're looking at this recording, the government and the EU, the UK government and the EU, have agreed to extend the time to negotiate a deal. And because the deadline was today, my own view is that they'll come up with some sort of fudge deal towards the end of the year, and it'll all be a big triumph. We've worked late into the night to come up with this agreement, and it will have to be rushed through maybe before Parliament can even see it. And that's what I think will happen. I don't think we'll be going out without a deal. As both sides are sort of saber rattling and threatening that this could happen, I really don't believe it will happen. And hopefully next year will be a better year for us. We can get to grips with this virus, whether it's through herd immunity or through a lot of testing, or through finding a cure rather than just a vaccine. I hope we'll get through this year and have a better 2021. Let's hope. And let's see what transpires with all these things. At the moment, in some of the cities that are under tier 2, the number of cases are spiking because people are getting together more, and we don't know what changes are coming up in the government. There are rumours that there could increase lockdowns in certain places, but we shall have to see what happens. I think any further lockdowns in a place like London would be a disaster for business. Businesses are just about getting back on their feet in restaurants and pubs and some theatres and the hospitality sector in general. They're just getting back on their feet. Shops have got customers coming in the door, but if you start another lockdown just before Christmas, their busiest time of the year, it will be a disaster. And business needs to know, needs to be able to plan ahead, needs to know what's happening, what's coming their way. They can't plan ahead if the government changes things and does things at the last minute by introducing sudden new tiers or sudden lockdowns in certain places. They need to be able to plan, because they've only just opened up a few weeks ago. I just hope that will hold steady, at least get us through the Christmas period before introducing any more lockdowns. So thanks a lot. Thanks for listening, and have a good evening. And thanks for everyone who tuned in on Facebook Live. Hi to Cecile there, and everybody who's tuned in, Dave and everyone. Thanks for listening, and stay safe. And as for the vaccine, I'm sort of playing it safe at the moment, in that I want to wait and see what happens and whether there will be any side effects, because I think it hasn't really been tested for long enough, in my own humble opinion. Although some people say, well, vaccines have changed the lives of people, millions of people all over the world, like the polio vaccine. Many people, older people, will remember people getting polio and walking around with those braces on their legs, and that they say that the polio vaccine has changed that. And we think of diseases like TB as being a thing of the past because of the vaccine. And my own Rotary Club helped to distribute, I say my own Rotary Club, the Rotary organisation, the worldwide organisation with 1.2 million members, helped to fund and distribute polio to countries in Africa and India and Asia that were still had cases of polio. And we virtually eradicated polio with the help, strange enough, this is a good conspiracy theory for you, with the helps of, guess who? Bill Gates and Bill Gates Foundation. He put 100 billion into distributing polio vaccines all over the world. So it is a fact. He does seem to want to vaccinate the world. So I better not say any more about that, but it has worked well, and we seem to have eradicated polio from the world with vaccines. So maybe they're not all that as bad as people think. So you've got to make your own choices and make up your own mind as to what you do. But whatever you do, do stay safe. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.